Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were to race open D-Class cars. Our first race at the Catalonia National Circuit. Turn 1 here can often be a rather scary affair with a long straight, a tight hairpin, and if you're towards the back, all you see is smoke. So there's a little bit of kind of pray you've got everything correct. The Mini does get bumped out a little bit wide across the grass. Aside from that, for the most part, everybody got through relatively cleanly. Nobody forgot to brake. When we run shorter layouts of track, often there's someone who forgets we're running on the shorter layout, but this time everybody was well behaved. A Camaro just runs out of road at the top of the course. This Golf that we're following goes side by side with a Datsun. That is a scary place going side by side through that sequence of corners very, very fast. There's a Mini around as well. Mini tries to get to the inside, just runs out of space at the hairpin. It's all just all too wide, leaving that particular corner. The Golf's now having a look around the outside of the Ford. Can't do it there, just cuts back to the inside. Ford just doesn't have the grip around these corners. Has a little bit of a look up the inside, but the Golf is far too fast through the turns. Of course, the interesting thing about D-Class cars is often quite a lot of sort of variety in the vehicles themselves, because you have to compromise between, getting some handling or getting some power out of the vehicles, and it's quite obvious, as we see with this Celica that gets absolutely mugged by a BMW and a Mini. That little bit of straight line speed, especially on a track like this, can be quite useful for this one long straight. But if you have gone for the straight line speed and have forgotten about the handling or not had room for the handling parts, you're then going to struggle around the rest of the lap. So certainly the build of your car is interesting. I like the challenge of building a D-Class car. I have to say, I came off a little bit unfortunate. I was involved with a little bit of a bump in El Camino that just couldn't quite get stopped into turn 1, as there is I think that was the Mustang got caught out on the curbs. I was fighting my way back, do a bit of a recovery drive, as was the BMW after he had a spin around as well. I'm trying to look for a way past this El Camino. Of course, the Chevy very, very fast in a straight line, but my Mazda much better through the turns as I go around the outside at the hairpin. The Chevy gets a little bit of a slide on, it gives me a bit of a bump, no harm done really, and I managed to make the move stick. The El Camino was struggling a little bit around this circuit. It's going up to the one part of the track that it does like. It is a decent sized straight you hit. Again, ignore the lagged out cars that are sat there sort of hovering around. Yeah, it's just something that's happening recently with the replays. You can see the size of the gap the El Camino can get to the vehicles around it. That Jag was right at the inside looking to get past on the run onto the straight. The El Camino got a gap back to it, but just doesn't have the brakes. The Jaguar can get up the inside at turn 1, and then the BMW just does the cutback through the next corner to get to the inside. There is an acceleration zone up this hill, and the El Camino keeps it side by side, makes the BMW go the long way round, and it is a scary place to be going around the outside at the top of the hill. They're very, very fast corner. But the El Camino just doesn't quite have the grip to be competing with the likes of that BMW and Jaguar. Further towards the front, holding third place, was an Aston Martin DB5, and it was a similar story that we were having going on here. The Aston, decent straight line speed, wasn't particularly fast accelerating, but it did get up to a decent straight line speed. But of course, when it came to the corners, was having all sorts of difficulty with a very, very slidey Aston. It's just the back end of this car was just wanting to step out all over the place, whereas the Scion TC, not as fast in a straight line, no, but much more composed, much better through the turns. The Aston gets a very big slide, and it just half a lap of them sort of battling was all it took for my Mazda to catch up to the back of this group. I went for the Mazda because I fancied building something different to the normal cars that you see me drive. Mazda was actually really, really good, and as the Aston gets a very, very big slide out of yet another corner, I'm looking around. This final section is incredibly tough to get an overtake done through here. It's so tight tight and narrow and slow. Overtakes are very, very difficult to come by. But with a better run out of this final corner, I can accelerate away from the Aston. I can just take so much more speed through the final turn that I can get far enough away that by the time the power of the Aston does eventually kick in, I'm just sort of out of range. And of course the brakes on my Mazda are far superior at the front, and it was the Golf and the Mini that were fighting. They were rather close together on this particular lap. It was another similar story here. This time the Golf was quicker at a straight line, Mini faster through the corners, but the Mini, it wasn't by a huge amount, so the Mini just couldn't quite find a way past. Unfortunately, the Mini would try everything. I think he clattered the curb on the inside. It was just enough to upset the car, put it a bit sideways, put it out of control, and that would give the Golf a bit more of a comfortable margin. The curbs at that little section there are very, very mean. You have to be careful of them. They can cause no end of problems. Yeah, a little bit unfortunate for the Mini there. My Mazda, I had caught up to the back of third place, having a look, trying to get past the Scion. Got myself to the inside, but again, I find trying to overtake in this final twiddly section, Scion ran a little bit too deep on the brakes. It's side by side on the exit, and this time I'm having to go around the outside of the final turn. Both of our cars, pretty good handling vehicles to be managing that nice and safely, and I just have the acceleration. The Mazda is good enough on the power, get enough speed off the turn to get ahead of the Scion as we run down towards turn 1. It is still sort of around there or thereabouts. The Scion has a big dive, so seeing if he can get the place back. We were towards the very end of the race now. Worth a try, but in the end the TC just couldn't pull the car up in time. The brakes on my Mazda were too good, and I would keep the position, and the Scion would lose out to the BMW. The Aston Martin was struggling a little bit, having held on to third for a while. Just the handling cars that had been squabbling amongst themselves earlier had all sort of spread out a bit and were now taking it in turns to find a way past this Aston. It just didn't have the grip. Again, very sideways on the way out of that turn. The Datsun's to the inside. Datsun can't quite get it stopped. Runs a little bit wide on the exit. The Aston's trying to fight back. But again, the Aston, I think, is a bit too big, a bit too heavy perhaps. Not quite got the acceleration. Would get up to a good top speed eventually, but not quite got the acceleration to compete with the small light cars, and not got the handling either, as we again go for another very big slide, and the Jaguar E-Type was lining up to have a go at him as well. At the front, though, it was the Golf that was to go and take victory ahead of the Mini. The Mini was gradually catching back up through the final couple of laps after his spin. It just ran out of laps. Didn't have enough laps to catch up to the back of him, and the Mini was having a really tough time getting past before that spin because the Golf was just a little bit quicker in a straight line. So yeah, the Volkswagen would take victory from the Mini, with my Mazda coming home in third. Interesting podium, not perhaps the podium I would have picked out when I started doing this, or had this class, if you like, for Versus the Community. Next race, we would go to the Sebring Club Circuit. Another interesting first corner. This one, a very tight hairpin. This one, though, with a slightly shorter run-up. Again, everybody was pretty calm around here. There was, I think, a couple of cars may have ended up a little bit out on the grass. I tried to go around the outside. I think it was a Camaro or something. Yeah, I tried to go around the outside of that, put a wheel on the grass and couldn't get my car off the grass again. That was a little bit scary as we run down the back straight. I'm side by side with a Fiat trying to go the long way around. Good enough under brakes to get that done. There was all sorts of kerfuffle going on further up. I think the Volkswagen slightly outbraked himself and caused a bit of a mess that I could profit from, managing to avoid all of it. I think it was a Chevy Nova as well that was coming through and picking up some places. I get to the inside of the Volkswagen through the next corner, and then it's straight onto the back of a Dodge Charger again to the inside, using the fantastic brakes in my little Mazda to get past him. In fact, the Volkswagen followed me through as well. And from 16th on the grid, I found myself in third at the end of the first lap. Yeah, quite a good start from me. I just avoided everything and picked off cars as and when. Yeah, quite useful, that one. The Chevy Nova didn't quite get as good a start as me, but still made it through cleanly, and it was now his turn to pick off the dodge around the outside of turn 1. That's quite a tough thing to do, especially in two great big muscle cars. This is a very narrow part of the in fact, all of this track is pretty narrow. The Chevy then has more than enough speed to get up alongside the Fiat 500 as they come under brakes. The Fiat just gets it a little bit too fast on the way into the corner. I don't know if he not locked his rear brakes a little bit or just asked too much of the car. Gets a big slide. Perhaps the Fiat could have held it around the outside. I think he probably would have been out-dragged anyway, just by the power of these muscle cars. Fizz, there he's having a look, having a little think, but couldn't quite do anything about the other great big muscle car. Another car making progress through the field, this Alfa Romeo, another one of these small and very, very light cars. These things are incredibly light. I've built one before. They are ridiculously light. He would simply out-drag the Volkswagen. Volkswagen's not giving up, though. Gets to the inside through the corner, and he is side by side with the Alfa. Just can't live with that acceleration. Just can't quite hold his car there. I mean, he's on the outside as well. Just is no match for the Alfa's acceleration. Again, the Volkswagen's there having a little bit of a sniff just in case, but he couldn't do anything about it. Amazingly, in second place was a Ford Deluxe Coupe. I did not expect to see this car towards the front, but after the first few laps, it was holding on to second. I would catch up to the back of it and was now putting it under pressure, trying to find a way past. In all honesty, it wasn't too hard, this one. The brakes on my Mazda are pretty decent, being a small light car, and the brakes on the Ford were not particularly good. It was certainly not doing too badly lap time wise, but in close quarters battle it just doesn't really have the brakes, and a little bit of a mistake. That's the thing with this car. You make a little mistake and you're in a lot of trouble. You can get away with little mistakes with the likes of my Mazda and with the Alfa and so on, but in something as large as that, the Deluxe Coupe, yeah, not a huge amount that you can do with that. After clearing the Ford, it would be sort of me and the Alfa that were having a rather massive battle over second place. We were trying to sort of catch the leader while not slowing each other down too much. It didn't really work. We just continued to battle rather viciously. In all honesty, the Alfa was a slightly quicker car. I was having to position my car sort of perfectly every time, having to defend. If I make one mistake, and the Alfa would probably get past. The thing is, when I would make one mistake, I would just run a little bit wide out of a corner, then the Alfa would run a little bit wide out of the next one. You see here, I carried just a bit too much speed on the way into that turn. Just stuck a wheel on the grass. The Alfa's right there on my bumper, and I thought I was in trouble through here. And then the Alfa makes a mistake, just outbrakes himself a little bit, and he's off out on the grass. So yeah, it was a fun little battle, that one. At the front, and amazingly, it was an El Camino that was leading the way. That's not a sentence I expected to say. This car started towards the front, vanished off at the start, had no mistakes and so on, and just pulled a huge gap. So by the time me and the Alfa had fought our way through the traffic and sort of squabbled with each other enough, we just ran out of laps to catch him. In the final couple of laps, despite our little battle that was going on, we were catching up to the El Camino really, really quickly. And you see around here, we're right on the tail of it now. A couple more laps, we might have had it, but the straight line speed of this thing was so much, it could pull such a huge gap down this start-finish straight and then down the straight after it as well, that, El Camino could go on to take victory. Never expected to be saying that, but there we go. My Mazda coming in second, with the Alfa finishing third, and amazingly, the Ford Deluxe Coupe would come in fourth. Our third and final race would go to the Long Beach circuit. I love Long Beach. I tend not to run it too often in Versus the Community because, well, it's rather challenging with 16 cars. I figured if we could get round it safely with anything, it would probably be with D-Class cars. I was wrong. I was wrong with that. Well, I mean, if we could get round it with D-Class, or with any cars, it would be D-Class cars. We can't. Turn one was a huge mess. There was just trying to fit 3 cars wide into turn one with just sort of such varying different vehicles didn't really work. A Bel Air got turned around, and I think a Datsun got turned around. I think a couple of Datsuns got turned around. And made a little bit of a roadblock, and me being at the very back, I got caught up with all of it. Didn't get broken in all of it, but just sort of had to dodge the roadblock that was going on. This Camaro had a much better start as he goes up the inside of the prelude to move himself into third place. Long Beach is certainly a challenging circuit. The start is so incredibly narrow through the sort of the roundabout section. The rest of the track's not too bad, but yeah, the roundabout section is is rather mean for a start of the race. It wouldn't take long for the Camaro to get past the Civic that was in second, but the Honda was fighting back as the Chevy got things a little bit wrong at turn 1 and just gets it a little bit wrong out of the roundabout as well. Takes a sort of a very, very shallow line, outbrakes himself a little bit, it's running wide. The Civic's up the inside, having a look, trying to get the position. They both run a bit wide, and the Prelude gets the pair of them. Just sort of spots a gap, a great opportunistic overtake there from the Prelude. Spots the two cars just running a bit wide and dives up the inside. Civic's now having a look back at the inside, but he has to take a very, very tight line. Can't quite do anything about the Prelude, and then so slow off the turn that the Camaro can go and get him back. Yeah, racing after sort of the initial start bit, racing can be quite good here, but it's just trying to fit 16 cars into a very narrow first turn that you tend to get problems. Now, I was to get lag killed as well on the first lap, just to add insult to injury, hence the damage, all of the visual damage on my car. I guess I must have forgotten to turn actual, it must have been on cosmetic damage only, because otherwise my car should be utterly wrecked. But yeah, I was having to again go on a recovery drive as I go all the way around the outside of a car. That's not a particularly fun place to go around the outside. It's yeah, certainly those corners are the more difficult turns to get overtakes done, but my Mazda, we managed to find a way past another car that was moving up through the field, a Dodge Challenger going to the inside of the Prelude. You know you're committed when you're going over the curbs here at Long Beach. The Challenger does go a little bit on two wheels, but he manages to make the move stick, has enough acceleration just to sort of keep his nose ahead of the Honda through these turns. Prelude's quicker probably through these corners, but now we come to a straight, and the big powerful muscle cars will vanish off into the distance with these straights. Again, you can see the size of the gap it's pulled just between the final corner and the start finish line, the gap it's got on the Prelude. Yeah, it certainly helps having all of that power. The Civic would have, I think he had a spin off one of the curbs that would drop him back, and I would be starting trying to make my way past. I had a look at going around the outside, realised I couldn't do it, cut back to the inside on the exit, and now we go for the drag race down here. My Mazda, okay, it wasn't quite as fast as the muscle cars, but it was doing pretty well for the straight line speed, and this time it was my turn. I didn't quite realise how much space I had. My turn to be committed on the inside. Got the RX-3 up onto two wheels. Civic is still there. He's still having a look. If you can keep it around the outside, you would be on the inside for the final turn, but it is a tough corner. You have to have a hell of a lot more grip than the car you're racing to keep it around the outside there. And in the end, the Civic couldn't quite do anything about it, and then we've got this long straight that my Mazda could run away on. This was the battle over 5th place between Ford Fiesta and a Mercedes Gullwing. The Mercedes had to go up the inside and couldn't get it stopped. Mercedes was really struggling on brakes. Quick car in a straight line, but was struggling to get it stopped. And as these two started fighting with each other, they were slow each other down quite a lot, and I was coming to join in the fun. Yeah, my Mazda was really good at this track. I was really pleased with the way it was driving. Just a bit unfortunate at the start, but yeah, the Fiesta, it got a bit of a gap through the turns there. The Mercedes just has so much straight line speed, is right on the back of it, but can't get stopped. The Gullwing was really struggling, getting the car slowed down again. He's fallen back through that particular braking zone. Fiesta would get things wrong into the final turn, run a bit wide, kind of tries to cut back on the cut back to the inside, confuses the Mercedes a little bit on that. They have it coming together. At the end, nobody really comes off that badly. There's a bit of a bump between the pair of them, but the Fiesta still has a bit of a gap. The Mercedes was sort of slowed down. I was slowed down behind them, trying to avoid what was going on. Nobody really lost out that much from that particular manoeuvre. Then we have the Mercedes straight line speed, trying to get up the inside into turn 1, but he just can't quite stop it. The Mercedes can't get stopped. The Fiesta just tags the rear of the car, and then neither of them can steer, and I get both of the positions. It's very helpful when the cars you are racing just have a little bit of a bumping coming together like that, and yeah, you can get the pair of the positions. It's a little bit unfortunate that the Fiesta just got caught on the back of the Mercedes, and neither of them could go anywhere. At the front, though, it was a Mini that would go on to take victory. Having started, I think he started 6th, got to 1st by the first corner. This thing launched like crazy and would just stay out of trouble, make no mistakes, and vanish away from the rest of the field. So yeah, we would have a Golf Mark II, an El Camino, and a Mini would would take victory in this versus the community. On the final lap, there was to be a close battle over, I think this was 6th, 7th place between the Chevy Bel Air. Quite an interesting choice of race car. Very, very fast in a straight line, but struggling through the turns. You can see how much faster it was than the Fiesta down that straight, but couldn't really get it stopped. Fiesta had a big dive, but again, he pushed that a little bit too much trying to get past. But even with that huge dive, you can see how much time the Fiesta can make up through the turns, but it's not going to be enough as the El Camino, the Bel Air would beat him across the line. That acceleration of the Chevy is really quite impressive. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this versus community. D-class cars, you get lots of variety in vehicles and lots of variety in sort of the way the vehicles drive, because you really have a choice of, do you go for a muscle car and go for straight line speed, or do you go for a handling car, and then you won't be as fast as the muscle cars with the straight bits, but you will be quicker through the turns. It threw us some good racing. Often with the lower class of cars, we get some good racing. So yeah, it was very, very good fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and my Mazda was surprisingly good for a car. I think it had 225 tyres on the rear. Not the normal sort of vehicle that I drive, but it was very good. I was pleased the way it turned out. But that is it for this week's FailRace versus the community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 25th of June. We shall be on Forza Horizon 2. We're going to be racing some S1 class Porsches. So yes, you will need the Porsche DLC. We will be driving on the main island, though, predominantly doing tarmac races. May have a go at a couple of the scramble races, the kind of the rallycross ones. If you want to sign up and take part in that event, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and the sign-up thread will be in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.